I'm Jacob, the founder of Sculpted, and this is...
My name is Christian. I'm a growth engineering nerd who has a broccoli head.
Peter for letting us come in here. And we wanted to record this video to have like a talking head explanation of why Sculpted is rebranding or pivoting the service to focus more on data enrichment as opposed to done-for-you outreach at scale. And I want to talk about like just the story of how Sculpted started, why we started with outreach, talk about some of the benefits but also the challenges of that service, and why we see data enrichment as a service, Clay-powered data enrichment specifically, as the future. Yeah, and I have Christian here who's essentially like, just for some context, I run like sales and go-to-market strategy and just overall operations, and then Christian does the implementations for clients, so he has more in the weeds experience with like deliverability challenges and whatnot. So we're both here to share our perspectives. Since I started the business, I want to talk about how it got started and why we started with done-for-you outreach. So in the beginning, I found Clay. I actually found it to solve my own problem, which was my sales team at Service Bell had a ton of really bad accounts and they were just calling the wrong people. And I found Clay as a way to finally create a super targeted account list. And I was like, wow, Clay's awesome. I fell in love. And quickly people started coming in like wildfire asking for consulting. This is back a year ago when Clay was still blowing up and not everyone had heard about it yet. So I started getting on sales calls, and the easiest thing to sell was done-for-you outreach, right? It's a very simple offer. You get meetings, just pay me and I do everything for you. And that's what we started doing. We landed some awesome logos like Sendoso, and they did really, really well. They made a lot of money. And so I just kept selling the done-for-you offer. When you're starting out as a business, you need to sell something that makes you money and is easy to sell. And over time, you can start to cut the fat and find something that's easier to fulfill over time, maybe harder to sell, but more consistent, more predictable. So we did that for a while, and over the course of that year, we had good results, but we also ran into challenges that I want to let Christian articulate for you. I'll talk about the first one, which is the general problem of doing outreach and just how hard it is to do successful outreach. And there's also technical issues like deliverability, which I can let Christian speak about. On the strategy side, there's a lot of project management involved with done-for-you outreach. You have to think about who you're going to go after, how you're going to find them, the copywriting, build the campaigns, the sequences, set up emails and deliverability, etc. Then send the campaigns, see the results, analyze them, iterate over and over again. It's a lot to manage. And even if you execute all of that properly, you still have a problem of your client's offer being bad, which most companies have bad offers, especially early stage companies that don't have product market fit yet. So even if I'm the best outbound guy in the world, if I'm selling a really bad product that nobody wants, then it's just not gonna get results. But you're on the hook as the agency owner for the results, and that's a very big problem. So that was one issue. And the second thing I was thinking through is, you know, it's hard enough for an internal employee, like a head of sales development, to run a successful outbound motion. There's so many moving pieces. They have all these sales reps, all this tech, and yet they still struggle to succeed when it's their full-time focus. Now imagine dividing your mental bandwidth across 30 clients and trying to do that at scale. It's very, very difficult. But to let Christian speak to the deliverability issue, which was actually the specific thing that drove us to realize we need to pivot. So in 2024 and going into 2025, scaled outbound is getting harder and harder. The inboxes are getting flooded, but really landing the inbox itself is a challenge now. When I started doing cold email back in 2016, the recommended total emails per day per inbox was about 200 per day. Now I've seen numbers as low as 5. So clearly the number's trending down to 0, and I just started asking myself, when is it going to get to 0? I'm so tired of buying new domains and new inboxes and they're getting burned and over again. So I want to let Christian speak about that, because this guy scoured the entire internet and the dark web to find as many solutions as possible to deliverability, and it still was a challenge. If you want to just speak about it, go for it.
Yeah, so I tried literally everything. If you can think about it, I've tried it, and deliverability has just remained a constant challenge. I think the core problem is the feedback loop. Whenever you make the change for deliverability, you can't really see the results until about like 3 to 4 to maybe even 6 weeks out, because that's about the amount of time it takes to warm up an inbox.
Right.
And because of that, it's really hard to test specific variables at once. Let's say like a domain provider. You can't really do tests with just that one variable unless you're doing thousands of tests a month. So we would test out a bunch of different things at once to see if they would make a change. Some would make a change, like a positive change. Some would make a negative change, but it's really hard to isolate what variables specifically made that change. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I think it's really just luck. It's kind of like driving your car down the road and you hear a weird noise and you jerk the wheel and then it stops for a second and you're like, oh, I fixed it. Then you keep driving, you hear it again, you like kick it a little bit and you're like, you're just guessing. You can't really be scientific about how you diagnose the problem.
And meanwhile, the VIP you're driving the back seat's like, everything okay up there? And you're like, yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, you know what I mean? And you're on the hook for the client results. So it's like, it's horrible.
So it's very hard to be scientific about how you approach it. So it makes it so that you're just guessing. And that's really hard to get consistent results when you're just making guesses.
Right.
And about 3 to 4, maybe even 6 months ago is when this deliverability change hit, and that just made it absolutely awful. Before that, you could guess and get away with it because the deliverability issues weren't as aggressive as they are now. But nowadays, it's like you're having to send like 5 emails per inbox. Each inbox costs $10. Each domain costs $15. It's like it's super duper hard to scale unless you have a very well thought out process that works, and that's been proven to work, and that is still working. It's hard to find something that works if you don't already have that.
So we were trying to think through ways that we can deliver value to clients and still solve the same problem, because Clay is still quite powerful and the solution generally still makes a lot of sense, but in a way that we're not on the hook for deliverability, both because as an agency, I just don't want to be responsible for that. And also, I don't think it's in the client's best interest, because even if the client is doing the outbound and they buy the domains and they set up the sequences, they're still going to get the same result. And so I'm trying to think through, how do we still enable customers to generate more pipeline with the same or less resources, which is the whole goal, without having to deal with sending thousands and thousands of emails. Because at the end of the day, I don't think the customer really cares how they're getting the opportunities. They just want more opportunities. So we started thinking, and I settled on the following. Let's help sales reps do a better job of what they do. I was reading a report from the Salesforce. They found that sales reps spend 70% of their time on manual tasks, which is insane, especially considering what's available today with AI and Clay. One of the big challenges that I've seen is horrible CRM data. I've spoken to large companies that have hundreds of thousands or millions of records in their database, and they said like half of them are just inaccurate. Duplication, missing information, people that have moved jobs. Another problem is accounts. They have so many accounts, they don't know which accounts are actually the right accounts to go after because their data is bad. So they either have to have a million VAs go through the account list to try and find the right accounts, which takes forever and isn't so accurate, or they can let their sales team waste time on it, or they can try and buy a big box data provider like ZoomInfo or Apollo, which has bad data, low coverage, and the same problem repeats itself. Imagine a world, I know this is crazy, but imagine a world where our sales team sits down on Monday and they have gem accounts with the right people, verified cell phone numbers locked into their sequence, and they can actually just trust the data and reach the right people and have real conversations. That's really at the end of the day what they need. So if we can enable that, I think that's really where the money is. And that's why we're pivoting our service to focus exclusively on data enrichment for our clients. So I'm currently at the finish line with a large company that has almost, I think, around 200,000 prospect accounts in their CRM and about 1 million contacts. And he told me he thinks half of them are incorrect for whatever reason. So his sales team is not hitting quota because they're spending too much time on manual work. The thesis is, if we can remove all of that manual work and let humans do human tasks, which by the way, AI is not going to kill SDRs. AI is your friend. It will help you do your job more effectively. We can give them their time back, about half their day, so that they can actually sell. So what we did here is we started out by defining their ICP with an account and contact data model, meaning what do you care about on a company level? And what do you care about on a contact level? How do you want that data surfaced to you? Like what field names, what data formats, how is it already in your CRM? And we define what that looks like. Then we build clay tables that match those definitions of the account and contact data model to actually find and format the data properly. And then we can send it back to their CRM. So essentially what can happen is he can give me an export of his entire database. We can run Clay on all the records, give it back to him with the bang on top tier accounts, the right people that are actually working at the right place with the right contact information, and push it back into his CRM with updated information and or information he did not have. Like for example, like reading a 10K report and processing it to see if their company initiatives align with your solution. Yeah. And then this is where the magic happens. Enterprise Clay offers a feature called Headless Clay, which is essentially an API where the data comes in, right, from the beginning of the row. And instead of finishing in Clay, it sends the data off to its final destination, which is your CRM, and the row deletes itself after. General Clay tables have a 50,000 row limit, so if you're trying to enrich a large database, then you'll be stuck. With this, you can just continuously enrich an unlimited number of records until you're satisfied and have it run in the background. So what does this mean for layman's folks, right? It means that your CRM, instead of having a one-time cleanup initiative once a year that you want to pull your hair out and then it just falls flat within a few months, you can actually clean it up properly the first time and then have your CRM maintained on an ongoing basis with all the data you need, the cheapest possible price, better than you ever had before, without dealing with a million VAs, wasting your sales team's time, or buying another data vendor to enrich and then yank again the next year. So that's what we're trying to do. The problem is it is still difficult to stand up. There's a lot of manual work involved in setting up the actual workflows to enable what I just described. And that's where Sculpted comes in, to take it off your team's plate so that you can thrive with Clay without having to onboard a whole new tool yourself and learn it yourself and et cetera. We'll do it for you, we'll monitor it for you, and make sure that you can experience these benefits as well. So that's the story. Hopefully you like it, and I'll see you next time.
Give me where can people find you, kind of thing?
Okay, where can they find us? Our website, if you're interested in reaching out, is sculpted.agency, and I'm also quite active on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect with me there, Jacob Tuweiner, you can follow my stuff. I post about Clay and what we're doing all the time. You can also message me there to set up a call. Probably the best way to get in touch is either the website or LinkedIn.